This is day 3 of the April 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. I will read again some of the questions and comments that I wrote down after meetings, private and group. After the last retreat with you, I saw things in myself that I really did not want to look at. But they kept coming up. And now back to another retreat here, there was the fear that you will take something away from me, leaving me vulnerable. Can we really live vulnerable to seeing what is going on within ourselves without defenses? Can we live without defenses? I recently learned a technique which helps me relax parts of my body that feel uncomfortable. Feeling discomfort there now, I applied the technique and felt more comfortable. It worked. But I also realized that keeping applying techniques to diminish discomfort and to increase comfort doesn't in itself lead to awareness or insight. I have done things in the past that I deeply regret, that I feel great guilt about, and I would like to remove this guilt and remorse from my consciousness. I used to go to confession, ask forgiveness and all that, but it hasn't really helped fundamentally with this deep-seated guilt about what I've done. How can I deal with this, with these remembrances of wrongdoing and with the guilt and discomfort arising from that? I'm deeply attached to someone, and I wonder whether this attachment is love. What is attachment? And what is love? Yesterday, before your talk, there was a moment of silence and spaciousness, which was not at all of my own will. It was the silence that was in power. Your talk then was clarifying. What confuses me now is, I always thought that in order to get to the silence, one had to do things to prevent thought from arising. Like doing some kind of physical work to prevent thinking. But now it seems that one can simply practice to be aware. It is a choice, isn't it? Are we too lazy to be aware most of the time? What is laziness? three things sort of beckoned to be talked about. One was a question left over from yesterday, whether one can live out of silence. Now today there is a question, can one choose to be silent, practice it, cultivate it? Is it a choice? Even though I've just realized that when there was that silence, there was no will. It was not of my own doing. And then the question, maybe we'll start with that. Leave the others for later. This thing of having done wrong in the past, done something that I still feel very guilty about, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20, maybe 30 years ago. I feel guilty about it, I feel remorse. I would like to remove this from my consciousness, but it doesn't go, it comes back up again, burdens me. I used to go to confession, but that didn't quite do it either. Ask for forgiveness. How can I deal with wrongdoing in the past? This is a universal question, isn't it? Everyone under the sun or moon has done things that still weigh in the mind. Maybe they don't weigh in the mind at moments of oblivion, but we have all done what we call wrong, or what the churches called, we have sinned. Some religions say we're born with that, we're born with sin, or we're born in sin. We may have heard that from the moment we could understand or repeat something verbally. We've heard that we're born in sin and have to be forgiven. But it's not just hearing that in maybe a church or Sunday school. It's the consequences of what we do and of which we are some kind of witness. Maybe the withdrawal of love and sustenance from our parents, blame connected with stern looks or physical punishment, withdrawal of love by teachers or friends, siblings, being humiliated or blamed, and what oneself feels, maybe sorrow for the hurt one inflicted upon someone else, and imagining what this sorrow does to someone else, that it also doesn't go away, is being carried, maybe turning into hatred, self-hatred, other hatred. This is with all of us, isn't it? The fear and burden of having done wrong. It can have become so conditioned into this body-mind, the fear of having done wrong, that one may not even remember anything in particular that one has done wrong, but maybe at the first instant of waking up from sleep, I've done something wrong, or did I do something wrong? Happens to me at times. Did I say something wrong, which could be misunderstood, misconstrued? And immediately with that thought, sort of a twinge in the body, in the solar plexus, or wherever it will evidence for different people in different places. And then the resistance against that discomfort in the body, somebody calling it an ugly feeling in the body. One doesn't want that. One doesn't want the remembrance of having done wrong or the fear of wrongdoing, and would go to great lengths to be ridden of it, to do penitence, to do atonement, just to be free from guilt. Maybe we won't look right away at whether it's possible for the mind to free itself of this burden of guilt, of past wrongdoing, but rather look at the state of the mind right now that is preoccupied and burdened by wrongdoing in the past, and the guilt that goes with it, and the yearning for relief, forgiveness. Isn't it all taking place in thought, in memory, in imagination, and throughout this physical body, which responds so sensitively to our every thought, whether the thought is conscious or not? The body responds, the glands, the organs, the muscles, the lungs, the breathing. Is this burdened mind, burdened with wrongdoing, with guilt, and what it elicits throughout the body, is that mind open to look and listen and be here now? Not just with what is going on in itself, but what is going on in the people, the friends, the co-workers, the parents, the patients around us. It isn't, is it? It's not open. How can it be open if it is preoccupied with the burden of guilt, having sinned, and with a yearning to do something, to get rid of it, this constant back and forth? Inwardly. Not just mentally, but mentally and physically. This mind is not open to be here now with you, unpreoccupiedly present now. And if it is not open in this way now, the same things will repeat themselves in one way or another. The same reactions, the same conditioned responses that led to previous hurt and what we call wrongdoing will repeat itself in the presence of a clouded, unclear, preoccupied mind. Because it's only when there's awareness of what we're doing that there's a chance of not going on with it. Not pursuing it, because there's awareness. Not just of the reactions that come up and would act themselves out, but also of the recipient of our words and actions, of the other people around us. There's only an open, unpreoccupied mind can be sensitive to sensitivity in others. Can can't be that if it is totally entangled, enmeshed, engaged in its own badness, sinfulness, burdenedness, and need for forgiveness or whatever way out the mind is searching for in its files. Do you see that? That's easy to see, isn't it? At least it's easy to understand it intellectually, but also experientially. When we're down on ourselves, we're hard to live with. Sometimes we blame other people for being hard to live with and don't realize what is really happening. They're hard on themselves, feel guilty about themselves, inferior, no good, not worthy, sinful, not clean, whatever, well, the feeling, how it expresses itself according to our peculiar conditioning. So then, in the presence of a person who is hard to live with due to their feeling guilty, burdened, bad, down, we may give that person a hard time too for giving us a hard time, for being hard to live with. So it's compounded. We don't invite, usually, with our ordinary, in our ordinary relationships, which are so pressured, so many inside-outside pressures. We don't invite kindly responses by being hard to live with ourselves, which only proves to us we are unworthy because nobody treats us right. Do you see how entanglement compounds all the time by minds that are not clear to see what is happening? Not knowing what we're doing. Comes to mind again. I mentioned it this morning in a meeting or yesterday, whenever it was. This saying of Jesus on the cross being humiliated and laughed at and stabbed in the thigh and given some vinegar to drink, was thirsty. Just saying, my Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. It touched me very deeply, more than any other thing that I read in my little book there with all the illustrations. Most of the illustrations frightened me of the angry, vengeful God. It was frightening, but I kept looking at them. We do that too. Today it's watching these horror movies. Now I'm going to be careful not to liken the Old Testament to a horror movie, but to me, these pictures of God sending thunder and lightning and flood and seeing Adam and Eve hiding behind a tree, and he saw them. You couldn't hide any place. And then accepting one offering and rejecting another from the brother. All of this is very scary to me. And not at all comforting and bringing peace to the mind. But this particular saying, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. Please, don't you see that? They're not bad, they're not good, but they're ignorant. They're conditioned. They knew what the program or what the disc is calling for, is eliciting. And that's how we are. Most of the time, if there's not some opening of becoming maybe for a glimpse in the beginning, for an instant, maybe just dimly aware of what one is doing, that one is reacting from automation, from program, mechanically. Thinking, one intends to do this, but it has even happened before the intention came into awareness. And one experimenter have taken recordings of brain waves that before there is awareness of having an intention, there's already stuff going on in the brain. Before the intention to do something comes into consciousness. The brain is already manifesting activity, unconscious activity. So, to me, the question is not what can I do to undo my consciousness of past guilt, or to feel less sinful? How can I undo what I did? You can't. We can't. We cannot undo what we did, can we? It's done. It's finished. It's happened. It's the past. Now it's memory. Albeit maybe shared by a few or hundreds or masses of people. National memories are carried and are aided. Children are educated in school to remember all the harm that has been done to them as a nation, as a religious group, by other tribes, other religious groups, other nations. Our lore and our ideology, religious beliefs often that don't allow us to forget, doesn't allow the remembrance to go into atrophy, to wither away. If it did wither away, the mind would be free of it. But it's not allowed, either personally or collectively. We keep going over and over to keep fanning the flames of past hurt and revenge or unforgetfulness. Do we see the insanity of it? We can just look at what is going on in the world. It's all based on what happened in the past. Avenging it now, teaching the others a lesson through our power, our bombs, our military, or our terror, or our sanctions. So the question was, how do I deal with past wrongdoing and the guilt and pain arising from the memory of it? I never have any remedies for specific ailments. Do this, do that. It doesn't work that way. Things work as a whole. Not fixing the parts, like this one person who realized, I've learned techniques to fix this part of my body, that part of my body. And I could be doing that ad infinitum, because there's always one part that is not in order, that aches or ails. But am I here, she questioned, am I here to just feel comfortable? To get rid of discomfort? Does that bring insight and awareness? She's asking for something more than the parts. body-mind heal itself, whole itself. Not by trying to tackle all its parts. That is infinite. It would take forever. We'd be dead before we tackled all the parts. And as we tackle one, we've done something else because we didn't pay attention. As we said, the conditioned responses are there to repeat, to react in very similar ways to similar stimuli, and do the same thing over, hurt somebody again. Someone said, at the moment that there was silence and spaciousness, thought or will had nothing to do with it. It didn't come about through thought. It was not me that was in control. It was the silence that was in power. I don't know quite how it was put, something like that. In that awareness, which was the same thing as silence, silent awareness, openness, open listening, looking, open feeling, open being. At a moment like that, where is the past? With all its right doings and wrongdoings. At that moment, that is not activated, it's not in operation. It is without energy. That whole circuit, which is wired into all of us, the wires, the things of the past, the memories of them, and their connections with their feelings and sensations and emotions, and also connections with other things that would remind one of what happened in the past. This whole associative network of past experiences, their memories, their physical accompaniments. That whole circuit can be there unactivated, not energized. Because the energy is not running in that small circuit or in that closed circuit. The energy is freely gathering and looking, listening, and being now. Not as somebody, that's the small circuit, the personality circuit. Not as somebody, but as a heart beating, throbbing, energy pulsating, breath flowing, and very acute listening, hearing sounds. Somebody said, I heard some sound I never heard before. In touch with the subtle things of natural growing and blooming and decaying, in touch with water, trees and clouds, the animals, little insects, and in touch with each other as we are, not as ideas and images how we should be, but as we are this instant, without personality. All of that is not activated right now. And therefore there's no guilt, no pain of the past, and no hope for forgiveness. It doesn't come into play. It's part of that other circuit. And in this state of openness, awareness, where the me is not the center of energy, me, what I was, what I am, what I will be, but everything that is, not excluding this organism, it's part of it, but it's not at the center, at the focus. occupying itself with itself through the thinking process. That's quiet. At that moment, we don't do harm to each other. Not only that, there may be an upwelling of love for everyone, everything, which knows no attachment. Attachment is of the personality, of the past, of the memory. But love is not of memory or past or future. It is now. Freely doing whatever, who knows, is unfathomable, not knowable. And also in this open space, which does not have the self-personality, the me with its will at a center, in that there isn't our usual preoccupation and occupation with choice. Should I do this? Should I do that? What is better for me? What is better for my clan, my group? And there's no choice, there's only what is, and the action flows freely. Usually quite appropriately. Not necessarily without mistake. But if a mistake is made, either it can be made up or not a problem made out of it. We all share in mistaking and misgiving. In listening to this, does this make sense? Some sense? That the mind, which is heavily burdened, preoccupied with ridding itself of displeasure, gaining pleasure or gaining contentment, occupied with regrets, remorse, need for atonement, clouded with the whole bundle of it, cannot freely look and listen now to what it's doing, how it's reacting, responding to what's right here now, right in front of me, under my foot, and before my eyes. Can I become aware that I'm down on myself, that I'm preoccupied with what I've done, what others have done to me, what I've done to them? Can I just become aware of that and aware of the stickiness of it, the moodiness of it, the difficulty that radiates from that, inwardly and outwardly? Just be aware of it. Not immediately, well, what am I going to do about it? That's not the question. The question is, can there be awareness, a still, silent enveloping of all of that? Not antagonistically, not moralistically, not in any way. No, in no way, just aware, just light, lightness, space. And realization, maybe a deep insight that as long as I keep thinking about myself in one way or another, good, bad, sinful, there's no freedom to respond accurately and lovingly and intelligently to life within and without. All the responses then come from the conditioning, and repeat what it is that one is already sorry about. Repeat it. Make more enemies, hurt more people. Or this lack of being able to communicate, be in touch with someone. The inability, because I'm so occupied with my own evilness. Or inferiority, insufficiency, may not necessarily be evilness. The idea of it, I'm not talking about evil. Just talking about the ideas we have about ourselves and others. So what will, and like one person says, how, now I realize, not try to repress and prevent the thoughts. How can I practice awareness? That's now what I want to cultivate. I see that this is the way. But is this already now being drawn back into the circuit of what I want to do in order to become a more aware person? The circuit of being and becoming, with all of its efforts and good intentions, linking up with the past. That system is an interconnected system with the whole database of the past. Comes into when I want to keep something, promote something, find a technique. Then comes comparison. How am I doing? Am I doing better than I did before, or better than somebody else, or not as good as others? And we're right back in the same circuit. Are we powerless to bring about awareness and attention, which seems to be the healing way of being? Healing, holding way of being. Well, we have to look again. What is this me that wants to have power? That wants to be at the switch? That's also idea, isn't it? Accompanied with a lot of physical feelings of power or feelings of powerlessness. How insight happens, insight into this self, which is an enormous bundle of memories and images and intentions. How this insight happens, I don't know, but it does happen to human beings, and has happened to human beings since time immemorial. And it seems to happen more frequently, and the time of quietness and openness expand the more one is interested in it, and does spend some quiet, open time finding out about all the conditioning that's going on this instant. Meeting that, shedding light on that. Like we said earlier, shedding light on feeling down on oneself, guilty, miserable. Just is always there to be seen, and there is this capacity in human beings to see and to hear freely. It is there. It's manifesting all over the place in human beings. The only thing, so quickly does thought want to master it and make it its own. And with that it becomes part of the system. But that can also be seen as the J can be heard. And with seeing thought wanting, fearing, guilting, aching, seeking, and the J squeaking, nothing needs to be done. That's true. An open listening is its own unfathomable way. It has its own intelligence and love, which belongs to no one. It's not a possession. It's unfathomable. It's not knowable, but it operates. In very amazing ways. We will end here for today.